Hey, listen, people and peopleettes. Now, in the Nintendo Direct last week, we got the announcement that Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 this winter. I actually made a video about the 5 things that I wanted in this game, but didn't get to upload it in time, and, well, Nintendo has actually confirmed that one of those things is happening. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is going to be canonical. I think it's pretty widespread that this game's canonical at this point, but I'll go ahead and read the statement that they issued after the Direct. It's like a press release thing or whatever. As you can see, it's a Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment section. We'll start halfway through here. Fans of the Legend of Zelda series and players of both The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom can experience the thrill of battle and this canonical tale featuring Princess Zelda, King Hyrule, and other familiar characters. Fight for Hyrule's future when Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment comes to Nintendo Switch 2 this winter. So, unlike Age of Calamity, this story will be adding more to the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom story, which honestly is much needed since that story feels a little bit laxed. And if Age of Calamity wasn't any indication of how much story there can be, I feel that we have the opportunity to get a lot more from this game. Age of Calamity had so many cutscenes and they were really story driven, at least for Age of Calamity's story, but now it's going to be canonical. And I'm really excited that we get that for this game, because we got a bunch of questions. Now, on the other video I made, this was the number one thing that I wanted the most, was that this story be canonical. And also the thing that I thought would happen the least. So now, I'm just wishing for just everything. So, today we're going to talk about the 5 things that I still hope for in this game, especially since we know now that this game is canonical. I really, really love the word canonical. Canonical. Say it with me. Canonical. Let's get into the first thing. First of all, the Rito, Zora, Goron, and Gerudo sages' identities and stories. In Tears of the Kingdom, 4 of the 7 sages, we know little to nothing about them, other than they're the ancestors of the current sages who tried to stop the Demon King with Rauru, Zelda, and Minoru during the imprisoning war. We can't even put names to the faces here because we literally have neither of those things. And though I hope and think that we will definitely get those in Age of Imprisonment, especially if they're kind of the focal point helping fight the Demon King during this time, I also want to get to know their personalities and get to know them better. I know they surrounded these sages in a lot of mystery so that it wouldn't overshadow our modern day sages like Tulin and Riju, but they shouldn't even be in this story, or if they are, it won't be in the time of the Age of Imprisonment and not the main part and the meat of the story. They really have the opportunity here to dive deep into these characters. I want to see how the races have come together under King Rauru to make the Kingdom of Hyrule, but I'm even more interested in one than the others. The ancient Sage of Lightning, who happens to be a Gerudo, must have an amazing story to tell. She is not sided with Ganondorf and actually tells Zelda in Tears of the Kingdom that it is the Gerudo responsible for the Demon King's existence. Now, I actually think she's saying this because he was born into their tribe, but is there something more to it? Perhaps Koume and Kotake, who we see in Tears of the Kingdom, who were Ganondorf's mothers, caused the man who was supposed to be the righteous king of his people to turn into the monster we see in Tears of the Kingdom. I want to know how many Gerudos sided with the ancient Sage of Lightning and how many sided with Ganondorf. Did the ones who stay with him do it out of fear? Was the Sage of Lightning the second in command like Nabooru in Ocarina of Time, or just a random member of the race? The story of the Gerudo in this game can be so rich, and I hope that the development team gives us every bit of story that we want with this and more. Honestly, I'd love to see a section where we, as Rauru, Zelda, and the other sages, maybe help this Gerudo warrior actually get out from under Ganondorf's thumb and separate themselves, and maybe we could see how that actually takes place in real time. The second thing that I want to see in this game is what are the connections between the Sheikah and the Zonai. Other than the Sheikah being a focal point in Breath of the Wild and the Zonai in Tears of the Kingdom, there's some pretty big parallels between these two people, such as their autonomous creations that they both use. The Sheikah with the Guardians, the Zonai with the Constructs. Even the rooms that we get in the game are very similar, with Ultra Hand and Magnesis and Stasis and Recall. And I know that you could say Recall is Zelda's power, but it's still used through a Zonai hand, which is how we use the runes in Tears of the Kingdom. So why is there such a connection between these two people? Are the Sheikah related to the Zonai, or did they just have some great obsession with them? Perhaps the Sheikah already were an advanced people who were just influenced heavily by the Zonai, or maybe the Sheikah had no technological advancements until the Zonai arrived. As a matter of fact, were the Sheikah even alive during this time, and if so, could we see one? We did see in one of the cutscenes in Tears of the Kingdom a white-haired man who wasn't an Elder HeyLissen, which is obviously a trait of the Sheikah, but was he just the beginning of the race? Is he maybe just some kind of anomaly? I don't know. Maybe they weren't even considered a separate race yet, because in the profile description in Tears of the Kingdom, Sheikah is apparently a subrace of HeyLissen. I just really hope that this game explores the connections between these two people and gives us an explanation as to why these two people seem to be so similar to one another. Now, the third thing I want is something that I think I've heard a lot of people talk about, and that is Rauru and Sonia's child. We know they exist because there's a blood relation between Zelda and the first king and queen of Hyrule. That has to mean there's a child. But where are they? I want to see what they look like. I wonder if, like the Gerudo genes that take over whenever a Gerudo and a HeyLissen have a child together, and the child comes out to be like a full Gerudo, if the Zonai genes do the same thing with the HeyLissen. If so, would that mean Minoru and Rauru are not the only Zonai left on the surface? And if that's not the case, I would love to see the design of someone who is half HeyLissen and half Zonai. Perhaps this child is hidden for their own protection to keep them safe, away from harm, since they are the king and queen's child, but I would like that explained. I also wonder if they possess power. In Breath of the Wild, the royal princess is supposed to be able to unlock a sacred power, and so would we see the first princess who would do this? And would they perhaps hold both the power of time and light that King Rauru and Queen Sonia have, just like Zelda? Maybe we'll actually get to see the very first Zelda. I mean, we learn in Breath of the Wild as well that the Zelda name is passed down to the royal princess as well. And I know I keep saying child, maybe there's more than one, but we don't know because we never hear anything about them. So please give us that Age of Imprisonment development team. And number 4, I want to know more about the Zonai themselves. They're one of the focal points of this game, and we know very little about them. Minoru and Rauru are the only ones we see in Tears, but are they the only ones living or the only ones on the surface? Did they leave their home in the sky in order to help this world on the surface? We also know that others have been on the surface. Ganondorf even says at one point, most of the Zonai don't grace this world with their presence anymore, or something along those lines. Perhaps they left them behind or thought of themselves too highly to exist with the HeyLissen and other races in Hyrule. I mean, after all, they are said to be descendants of gods, so I could see a little arrogance existing. Do they all have magical powers, or are Minoru and Rauru anomalies? Link does have Rauru's hand through the game, and we can, of course, use the runes through magical abilities, such as Ultra Hand and Ascend, but is that because of Rauru's power of light, or is it just because he has magic separate from that and the light is just a special thing that he has? Because we really don't see Minoru use any power other than her spirit ability, unless Ultra Hand is how she puts her constructs together, but it doesn't have like the gluey look, and I just don't think so. I also want to know why in Breath of the Wild the Zonai were said to be a savage race. Did the Kingdom of Hyrule once again try to hide their history? Where did this savage story come from? And I want to know more about their culture and their customs as a whole. Not just why they don't live on the surface anymore, but who are the Zonai people? Now, the last thing that I would love to see in this game is an explanation for the dragons Farosh, Dinral, and Naydra. Now, there was a lot of mystery about these guys in Breath of the Wild, but at the end, they just seemed to be protectors of Hyrule and served their respective springs. However, Tears didn't really add much to that other than the possibility of their origins. We see in Tears of the Kingdom that Zelda swallows a secret stone which turns her into the Light Dragon. So, were these 3 dragons once people, spirits, sages, gods, anything? It even adds more to it that Naydra's description in the compendium reads, "A spirit of ice has taken the form of this giant dragon," implying that this dragon has at some point transformed from its original form. I would love to hear who these 3 dragons are. Do we actually get to meet them in Age of Imprisonment? I mean, Age of Imprisonment's time frame is thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years old. We really don't even know. So could we have met them before they transformed? Maybe they transformed in support of Zelda to help her protect Hyrule and keep her safe. Or perhaps there's some other explanation as to who they are. Maybe they already existed in this time and there's a tale about how they got there. I'd love anything, to be honest, about these 3 dragons and their possible origins. Now, I don't know how many of these things are going to actually get to happen. I think some of them are more likely than others, but I'm really, really excited to see what this game is going to provide for us lore-wise. I also can't wait to get to play as all these characters. There's going to be a lot of new characters, seemingly more new than old. Maybe we'll get to play as one of Hestu's ancestors, or still play as the Great Fairies. I'm sure they're going to add many more characters, and I would say even after you beat the game, that we'll get the current and modern sages and probably even Link in there as well. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I want to hear what you guys want answered most from this game. Leave it down in the comment section below. If you like Zelda content and Nintendo stuff, hit the subscribe, hit the like, and I will see you later, taters.